To me, the Dead Sea has always been one of those iconic places that you hear about, but don't quite think of as real. You know? Maybe only people who grew up before the internet will get this. I mean, you could find it on a globe, in an atlas, or an encyclopedia, but the chances of meeting someone who'd actually been there, pretty slim. Going there myself was barely a kernel of a thought until we started building the itinerary for this trip. If you're just joining us, we're in day 3 in Jordan, having spent the first 2 in Amman. We got started early with the free breakfast at Layali Amman Hotel, after which we piled into Muhammad III's car and hit the road. Muhammad is a super common name in Islam, so we numbered them to avoid confusion in our conversations. My first choice for getting around is usually to rent a car. If you can read a map and follow GPS, driving yourself offers the most independence and allows for spontaneity. It's usually cheaper than hiring a driver or taking a taxi too. However, it's not without risks. If you get lost, you need to ask for directions. Language barriers can be a real hurdle. If you have mechanical problems or get a flat tire, you're on your own. Whereas a hired driver can make one phone call and have another car pick you up while they sort out the repairs. I've never been more glad to have a driver than when we went to Bali, and Jordan comes in second for a couple of reasons. The first is that initially, I didn't realize how excellent the cell coverage is there. So when we were out in the middle of nowhere or climbing a crazy steep mountain, it was nice to have the security of a local behind the wheel. And the second is that police checkpoints are fairly common, and it's just more relaxing to let someone else deal with that. Now that we've been, I would prefer to rent a car next time we go. They drive on the right side of the road, and nearly all the signs are in Arabic, but also English. GPS and cell service are among the best we've seen anywhere. Far better than here at home, even though we live right in the center of tech world. Other ground transportation option is a tourist coach. Some trips are daily, some might only be a couple of times a week. Jet transport, for example, offers a couple of options from Amman to the Dead Sea. A one-way ticket for a 60-minute ride is 10 dinar, which is around $14 or 13 euros. Thing is, you're on their schedule, and if they're full, you're out of luck. Just FYI, they also do a day trip from Amman to the Dead Sea for 15 dinar. It's about €21.19. Leaves at 9 o'clock in the morning and returns at 5. So you have about 6 hours at the Dead Sea to explore and play in the water. Other options are available, and there are several other bus companies. This is just the first one I found. As I mentioned briefly in the previous video, taxis are ubiquitous in the cities, and most drivers will be happy to take you anywhere. Reserving a ride ahead of time is much cheaper, though. By far the most affordable option, and the one used most by locals, are the minibuses. They don't run on a timetable, they just leave when they're full, which could mean a long wait, or no wait at all. 30-minute ride could be as little as $1. So if you're trying to get from, say, Amman to Aqaba, which is like 4 hours, and you're on a budget, this might be your best bet. Obviously, these are the slowest and least comfortable option. However, might give you a chance to meet some locals. We try to shoehorn as much as we can into our trips, so spending time waiting around for buses or rolling the dice on other options doesn't always work for us. So I always like to say, if you book everything far enough in advance, you'd be amazed how affordable it can be. Before setting off, Mohammed asked if we wanted to stop anywhere or just head straight to the Dead Sea. We had plenty of time before check-in, so we opted to make some stops, leaving the itinerary up to him. I think they charged us an extra 35 dinar or something. First stop was about 45 minutes away to Madaba. Now, driving through Jordan is a unique experience. The landscape and the infrastructure change quickly and often dramatically, with long stretches of open space punctuated by random scattered structures, some of which seem to have been abandoned mid-construction, while others have obviously been in use for decades. You'll even see the occasional Bedouin tent, in this area usually associated with a flock of goats or sheep. Then, suddenly you'll be driving through a village or a town, but blink and you're in the desert again. Once in Madaba, Muhammad III dropped us off at St. George's Greek Orthodox Church. As you can see, it's not the most spectacular building to look at, and by comparison to many other sites in Jordan, it's practically new, having been built in 1884. The thing is, when they were preparing the site for this building, they discovered that it had been the location of a Byzantine church, which housed what many now refer to as the Madaba map, a large and remarkably accurate mosaic map of Palestine built into the floor. The ticket office doubles as a small interpretive center and has excellent displays recounting the history of the mosaics and the site. We paid 5 Jordanian dinar for a 10 or 15 minute presentation, which really helps you spot some of the details once you're in the church. Our guide also showed us a few items within the church that we totally would have missed otherwise, like these sections beneath the pews. Here, that's Damascus. And then over here is Lebanon with Egypt on the far side. Made up of more than 2 million pieces and dating to 560 CE, there are over 150 captions in Greek denoting major biblical sites from Egypt to Palestine. It was originally 50 to 80 feet long and 20 feet wide. Much of it was lost when the first church was demolished and then also in a subsequent fire. But enough is still there to give you an idea for its initial complexity. And this is still a functioning church. On Friday and Sunday mornings, they're open at 7 a.m. for Mass, after which they roll back these strategically placed carpets and rope off the mosaic to make way for visitors. Less than 10 minutes from St. George's, our next stop was Jordan Jewel Art and Mosaic, where the ancient art of mosaic tile work continues to be taught and practiced. Their showroom is massive at 13,000 square feet and includes everything from large ornate tables and chairs to wall hangings, and then mugs like the ones we picked up. Keep in mind, while looking at some of these pieces, that a 10 square foot mosaic takes 200 to 300 hours to complete. Probably our favorite aspect of this place is that the project supports hundreds of families by teaching kids, the majority of whom suffer handicaps, this traditional art form as a trade, giving them an opportunity to have proper education, medical care, and an income of their own. From there, it was barely 5 minutes to Mount Nebo, probably best known as the site in the Old Testament where Moses sees Canaan, the promised land, just before dying. From the summit, you can see the West Bank across the Jordan River Valley. Jericho is usually visible too, as is Jerusalem on a very clear day. It was a hazy day when we were there, but this is the view described in Deuteronomy. Mount Nebo is also where the Bible says Jeremiah hid the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant in a cave. Kind of seems like that myth should get equal press to the Moses thing, but what do I know? This is also the site of yet another Byzantine church with more mosaics. And to be clear, the lighter colored section here, that's the modern structure that's been built to protect the archaeology. And the initial church dates to the second half of the 5th century, with continuous and extensive additions and renovations made over its lifetime, which ended with the Galilee earthquake in 749. The whole site is now considered a memorial to Moses, overseen by the Franciscan custody of the Holy Land, which was established by St. Francis of Assisi in 1217. Pope John Paul II visited in 2000 and Benedict XVI in 2009, with the former planting this olive tree next to the chapel. The brazen serpent sculpture atop Mount Nebo was created by Italian artist Giampaolo Fantoni, and it is symbolic of the bronze serpent invoked by Moses and the cross of Jesus' crucifixion. Weirdly, I haven't been able to find a single source for when the sculpture was installed. By far, the largest contingent of Americans that we ran into in Jordan was at Mount Nebo. Busload. I overheard one of them say he'd been there multiple times. Embarrassingly, they ignored all the signs posted all over the place admonishing one to refrain from speaking out loud inside the monument. Merc. Upon leaving Mount Nebo, it was another 30 to 40 minutes to Crowne, Plaza, Jordan, Dead Sea. Now, if you've been following our travel videos at all to this point, you know that we tend to avoid the large hotels and resorts. This viral video from a few years ago is a good example of why. These folks wait in line for 90 minutes every morning, starting at 6:30, just to make a mad dash for the lounge chairs around the pool when the gates open at 8. Not exactly our idea of a fun or relaxing vacation. That wasn't at this hotel, by the way, in case you weren't sure. Anyway, the hospitality industry in Jordan, as everywhere, took a huge hit during the COVID pandemic. In planning this trip, it was really difficult to get up-to-date information on most of the smaller lodgings in the area, who was still operating and who wasn't. Some of the businesses that had stayed open during COVID apparently hadn't fared very well or were operating with such a limited staff that they couldn't really serve their guests as they normally would. We would much rather have supported a local entrepreneur than a multinational chain, and no doubt would have gotten more insight into the area. But since we book as far ahead as possible, out of an abundance of caution, we went with a place with current reviews and updates online, which also fell into our budget, if at the higher end. As you can see, the place is absolutely massive, and no expense was spared in design and construction. It was still early in the day, so after checking in, we headed straight for the sea itself. You know, I first learned about the Dead Sea when I was in elementary school. If you had told me then that I would be walking up to this railing right now, I would have laughed in your face.
Oh, is that like the float zone?
Do I see wetsuits? I feel like I see wetsuits on some of those people.
I don't know.
Maybe that's the mud zone. Maybe that's what that is.
They're not wet suits. They're covered in mud. I don't want to do that. You can do that with my legs. You can cover my legs in mud.
I don't give a shit about doing the mud.
I just want to go and see what the flowy thing is.
That can't all be mud, can it?
Promenade. This is the promenade.
Yes, of course it is.
And that's the hotel. And that's our room. Which is our room? That one. The second one, right? No.
Our room's over there.
Oh, with the tree blocking it.
Yeah. Your elevator's here, miss.
Tree.
Ooh, it's a glass elevator. Willy Wonka. It was kind of surreal riding down in the elevator to be looking at the Dead Sea. I mean, it's a mythical spot, but it's also the geographically lowest point on the planet. It's 1,412 feet below sea level. And it's not like it's a gradual descent either. Mount Nebo's like 2,300 feet above sea level. And on the other side, Jerusalem's like 2,500 feet. Now, let's see if I can squeeze the history of the Dead Sea into like 30 seconds. Start the clock. 4 billion years ago, the Mediterranean Sea overflowed into the Jordan Rift Valley, creating the Saddam Lagoon. For 2 million years, evaporation created layers of salt and other minerals nearly 1.5 miles thick. Then, 2 million years ago, the Arabian Plate and the Eurasian Plate crunched together, sealing off the valley from the Mediterranean, creating Lake Amora. Glaciers came and went, changing it again into Lisan Lake. Then, about 12,000 years ago, the flow of the river slowed, reducing the water level until there were 2 separate bodies of water at the lowest sections of the valley, the Sea of Galilee in the north and the Dead Sea in the south, connected by the Jordan River. Well, nearly. The salinity of the Dead Sea is more than 9 times that of the oceans.
9 times?
9 times.
This makes us humans much more buoyant.
It's kind of cold.
Yeah, it's nice. It's actually colder than I thought it would be.
I thought it would be warmer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is November.
The water feels. It's a little slimy.
It feels like you just did Dead Sea salt scrub. That's what it feels like. All right, floating. I am the least buoyant person I know. This is amazing. Dead Sea, everybody. What are you thinking there, Winnie? Personally, I've never even been able to float on my back in the water like some people can. So literally laying on the water is a very odd sensation. Then Wendy wondered aloud.
Can you touch the ground over here?
I think so. I don't
No,
think
you
it.
can't.
Which was when we discovered that you can also float vertically, which is just hilarious. I'm floating vertically,
No, that's weird.
and I can't sink.
It's like I'm trying to touch the ground, and it won't let me. It's like, oh, look at me,
This
I'm
is-
treading water. I could tread water all day long.
This
It's like, what actually can live in here scares me.
To answer Wendy's question, since the 1930s, scientists have known about a microbe called Halophorex volcanii, which actually thrives in the Dead Sea. And more recently, freshwater springs have been discovered at the deepest parts of the lake, about 1,000 feet down, in which a certain prokaryote is able to survive. But for the most part, there's a reason it's called the Dead Sea. Then we had this exchange with a fellow floater. He's like, in case anybody's wondering, it tastes really bad.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, you can't get the taste out of my mouth.
Ew.
I've found a ton of online sources that all use this exact same sentence. Accidentally swallowing Dead Sea salt water would cause the larynx to inflate, resulting in immediate choking and suffocation. End quote. But not a single one of them cites the source of this information. On the other hand, I've also found multiple cases of people asking for advice on how to feel better after swallowing water from the Dead Sea, followed by several answers from people who've been through it. I'm pretty sure that if upon ingestion your larynx inflated and suffocated you, people wouldn't be allowed to go in the water. Call me crazy. Bottom line, swallowing it isn't a good idea. Definitely don't drink it. But if you do happen to swallow a little bit, more than likely you just feel kind of crappy and maybe have a sore throat for a couple of days. Also, avoid getting the water in your eyes. Bare minimum, it'll burn like hell. As you can see, nobody in this footage is having a splash fight or horsing around. Honestly, just the sensation of bobbing like a cork is entertainment enough. Huh? What'd you say?
I'm just listening to them being goofballs. Look, okay, you can't lay on your stomach. Tips you over. we're using this as a headrest. There we go. Smart cookies. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's better. That's better. Yeah, okay.
Okay, it's officially vacation
we're
now.
Good. Okay, baby, baby, baby.
I feel like I'm out of the water too much.
Look at this. Well, my belly is.
I don't know what you can see.
We could laugh about our bellies right now, because next time our bellies won't be here.
That's right.
'Cause
We're on a
gonna-
mission. We're not going to be COVID old or COVID fat next time.
Yeah. COVID old, COVID fat. Yeah.
There's got to be a little current, because look at what keeps happening.
You know what? I can't get my butt down.
Turning my feet. I can't keep my feet pointed the way I want them to.
Okay, watch, I can't do this.
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to push down into the
Put my
water?
butt in the water.
Okay, now what else is there to do?
Okay, look at how the water is in my navel, and it's above the water. But
She hasn't had a single glass of wine yet. This was the first time we'd actually relaxed since before even leaving for the trip. So it was nice to just lay there and chat. We were still in a pretty goofy mood, too. Makes my butthole burn a little bit.
you should have been using the bidet.
Oh, wait, I said that on camera. It's staying in.
No. But just like my...
I got a burning butthole.
It's like my belly.
Oh, that's definitely staying in. Once the novelty had worn off, we decided to have a rinse and explore the grounds of the hotel. As impressive a place as Crowne Plaza is, since tourists hadn't really started traveling in large numbers yet, most of the amenities were closed. This pool didn't even have any water in it. At the back of the campus, above the beach, is this smaller pool with a large hot tub and a bar. Could have done without the music, but it was nice to relax in the hot tub and have a couple of drinks. Unfortunately, it closed at sundown. What? Apparently, the hotel boasts 4 restaurants. Only one of them was open when we were there. It's called Ambrosia, and it's a buffet. We started out with a small plate each, but I'll be honest, the other guests were a bit much for me. Finally, one of the chefs took pity on me and leaned over to ask, "Do you like Monsaf?" And this perked my ears. I had learned about Monsaf in the lead up to our trip, so I knew it was the national dish of Jordan, that it's made with slow-cooked lamb, yogurt, several different seasonings, rice, nuts. But I thought it was reserved just for special occasions like weddings. Plus, there was no Monsaf on display in any of the buffet trays. That's when he turned around and opened a massive skillet on the center island where the Monsaf had clearly been simmering like all day. No brainer. I had him dish some out for me and returned to the table. Whereupon Wendy, who was pretty much unable to resist lamb in any form, interrogated me before trotting back to the buffet for her own plate. It was absolutely delicious. I returned for a second plate, and I think Wendy went back like twice. We were literally the only people in the room not eating the westernized food at the other stations. And eventually the whole staff seemed to be aware of us. The chef who was in charge that evening came over to chat, and I made him take a selfie with me. When we finally waddled out to return to our room, we got a rousing send-off from all the cooks and the servers. I think to the annoyance of some of the other guests. Gotta admit, the lighting around the pool area is pretty amazing at night. Early to bed, early to rise, we went back to Ambrosia for breakfast, which was fine. I mean, once you've had a hotel breakfast buffet, you've pretty much had them all. One thing to keep in mind, though, when traveling in Muslim countries is they don't eat pork, so the bacon at breakfast is beef bacon. Same with the sausage, which is perfectly tasty, just doesn't taste like pork belly. After breakfast, it was time to get ready to leave. Mohammed III was due at noon to pick us up for the ride to Petra. Wendy started organizing and packing, while I went outside to get some last-minute photos and video. On the walk back from breakfast, we'd taken some time to enjoy this crazy flock of birds outside our room, and I wanted to get some more footage of them, along with just some B-roll around the grounds of the hotel. When I got back to this general area that you saw earlier, I heard a group of different birds. I couldn't see them through the trees, but I could tell they weren't very far away. Now, I was aware that these steps were here, so I sidestepped down them as I searched for the birds. Then I went back up a step or two, trying to see through the foliage. When I finally decided to just keep moving, I thought I was at the bottom of the stairs, but I was somewhere nearer the top. And I took a large step sideways with my flip-flop clad left foot. I kind of hop-skipped back toward our building and up the stairs. Bursting through the door, I made a beeline for the bed and dove onto it. It had taken me less than a minute to get back to the room, and by the time Wendy had her first proper look, the ankle was already swelling significantly. "Oh, I think it's bad," she said. So, you hear her laughing? She's just she's a sweetie. So it's day 4 in country, as they say, and as the professional photographer that I am, I was out capturing images of the Dead Sea and whatnot today, thinking that I was down off the last step of the stairs, and stepped with my foot sideways, and fell down, go boom, and now big, giant, swollen, disgusting ankle, and no medical, really. So we're waiting for Muhammad III. No, Muhammad III, sorry. He's coming to pick us up at 12, supposed to be going to Petra. But instead, he's going to get here and we're going to let him know he has to take me to a hospital because the nurse here tells me I need an x-ray. So, I'm waiting. Wendy gets to do all the packing by herself while I sit here wondering how badly I have ruined our trip. Will I hike Petra? Will I hike Wadi Musa? Unlikely. Will I be able to dive or snorkel? Maybe, but not if I have a cast on. So, we'll see what happens. Okay, trigger warning. I'm about to show you a picture of what the ankle looked like at this point. There's no blood or anything, but if you're at all queasy about this sort of thing, you might want to close your eyes for a few seconds. There's the view from my perspective. And here's another trying to show it in comparison to the right one. Things can change in a blink, and you need to improvise. For example, finding the closest place to get an X-ray. I guess that's as good a place as any to end this one. Things are about to get interesting. Stay tuned.
Say goodbye, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy.